Barkley takes the snap, drops straight back, sets up the pass, looks downfield, throws deep down to the left side. DeVon Johnson, he's got it at the 30-yard line. He's tackled immediately.
Well, hello! Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video. Welcome to the Gridiron. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone out there who's been watching my videos. Thank you! If you can maybe give this video a thumbs up or possibly leave a comment below or maybe even share this video, it would mean so much to me. But anyway, just thank you so much for just taking time out of your day to check out this video. Thank you! Well, the New York Giants, today is Friday, all right, so we got 4 more days, and then the rookies show up for training camp. All right, so very soon it's all going to start, and then 8 days later, that's when the veterans have to start showing up for training camp as well, and then we're off and running, guys. But if I see anything, anything newsworthy or whatever, like I'll put a video out on it. But so right now, I just want to at least maybe wrap up the 1940s. I'll probably maybe this might be my last one, and maybe I'll pick it up somewhere further down the line. But we'll be starting with the 50s. But this will wrap up the 40s, okay? Which also for the New York Giants, which also is 1949 is also their 25th. They're at the quarter century mark, the 25th season in the history of the New York Giants, and it was just a so-so season. They were 6-6. They were 4-2 at one point. Okay, and they still had a shot. They're only one game out of first place because the Eagles were 11-1. The Eagles were a very good team that year. I mean, this would be the 3rd straight season the Eagles went to the championship game. The 3rd straight season that the Eagles won the Eastern Division. Okay, I said the Eagles are very good this year. The Eagles they lost a game. I believe it was their 5th game of the season. They lost to the Bears. That was the only game they lost. They're in Wrigley Field in Chicago. The Bears won. I think it was 30. I'll show it. I think it was 38-21. The Bears are very good too this year. But the Eagles lost. So the Eagles were 4-1. Then they won their next game. They were 5-1. So at one point, the Eagles were 5-1, and the Giants were 4-2. Okay, so after 6 games, halfway through the season. Okay, the Giants were just 1 game out of first place. So it looks like they had had a chance, but they were 4-2. Then they lost a game. Then they went to 4-3. Then they won a game. Then they went to 5-3. Then they lost a game. They went to 5-4. Then they won a game. They went to 6-4. Then they lost their final 2 games of the season, both against the Eagles. So they wound up 6-6. But, I mean, I guess it was somewhat of a step in the right direction, I guess, because 1947, the Giants only won 2 games. 1948, they got better, but they only won 4 games. So they had back-to-back losing seasons. So 47-48 were not very good at all. So, I mean, 49 was at least a little bit better. They didn't have a winning record. They didn't have a losing record, okay? They didn't go to the championship or, anything like that. But at least they didn't have a losing season. But some of the pieces to the puzzle were starting to get put in place. Okay, the Giants they started doing some decent drafting in the early 50s. They started making some good trades, and by the time the mid 50s rolled around, obviously into the late 50s, into the early 60s, the Giants had a formidable team. Once the 50s rolled around. Now, 1950, the Giants wound up tied, okay, with the Cleveland Browns at the end of the season. So they had a playoff game to see who went to the championship game. Fortunately, the Browns won 8-3. And so the Browns went to the championship game, and the Browns won the championship game. But once the 50s roll around, the Giants, they start getting a little bit better, as I said. I mean, they make some nice trades, right? They drafted Kyle Rote, they drafted Frank Gifford. They made some good trades. They got Andy Robustelli, so they started putting some pieces to the puzzle together. And the one thing is the way it was back then, which is the way I'm an old fart, so this is the way I like it. right? You draft a guy, and he plays his whole career with you. Unless he gets hurt, unless you just don't want him or whatever. But if you draft somebody good, he plays his whole career with you. You know what I mean? The guys didn't get paid back then. That's one of the reasons why they want to play their whole career with, pretty much the same team for the most part. But, it's not like the way it is now. The guys play 2, 3 years, 4 years, whatever, and then they're on this team, then they're on that team, they're on this team, That's the way I like it. The way it was back then is they started, getting a guy here, and they knew he was a good guy. He was going to be on the team for 10 years, and they get another guy here, and then another guy here, and then, so as they were getting these guys, putting the pieces to the puzzle together for a winning championship, for a winning team, they knew they got the guy, and they knew they were going to have the guy for years. I said it's unlike the way it is today. But once the 1950 rolled around, the Giants certainly got better. But as I said, the end of the 40s was just not real good for them. I said, they scored some points, but they also gave up points. So it was just a hard thing. One game they would score some points and obviously wind up winning. Then maybe the next game they would give up 30 or 40 points and they would wind up losing. So they just didn't have such a good club. But I'll show you some of the stats and all and everything. So let's take a deep dive, shall we, into the 1949 season for the New York Football Giants, which just happened to be the 25th season in the history of the New York Giants.
All right, the New York Giants, 1949 New York Giants season. It says up here, 1949 New York Giants season was the franchise's 25th season in the National Football League. All right, they were head coach Steve Owens. They were still in the Polo Grounds. They were 6-6. They're in the NFL Eastern Division, so didn't qualify. But as you notice here, they lost. They were 4-2 at one point. We go over here. The Eagles. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After 6 games, the Eagles were 5-1. All right, after 6 games, the Giants were 4-2. So the Giants, after halfway through the 12-game season, right? Halfway through, the Giants were 1 game out of first place. But yeah, you notice here. So the Eagles are just killing teams, right? They beat the Bulldogs 7-0, but then they started a little slow. Okay. They won 7-0, then they won by 7 points, then they won by 8. But then after that, all right, then they lost 38-21. But then all these other scores. They beat the Cardinals 28-3. They beat the Redskins. They beat them by 35 points. They beat the Steelers by 31 points. Beat the Rams, all right, who went to the championship game, all right? The Rams who won their division. They beat them by 24 points. They beat the Redskins by 23 points. They shut out the Bulldogs 42-0. Right? Actually, they shut the Bulldogs out twice, 7-0 and 42-0. Then they beat the Steelers by 17. Then they beat the Giants by 21 and 14. They were just killing teams, So then I said, then you wind up looking like at the Giants. The Giants scored 38 here. They scored 30. Then they gave up 30. Right? They scored 40. Then they gave up 40. Right? They scored 30 here. They gave up 30 here. Right? They scored 24 here. They gave up 28 there. So it's like, they scored 23 here. They gave up 28 there. So it's like, they could score some points, but obviously, a lot of times against some of the better teams, like the Eagles, they scored 6 points in 2 games against the Eagles. Right? So, they could score some points. It's just that their defense just had a hard time. If you look here, the Eagles were 11-1. Eagles only gave up 134 points. So, basically, in 12 games, they gave up, 11 points a game. Right? But not only that, right, they scored 30 points a game. 12, they gave up, they scored 360 points in 12 games. They scored 30, right? So, their average score was 30-11. All right, so Steelers were in second place. They just nipped the Giants because the Steelers had a tie. Right, it was where the Giants had just 6 losses. Yeah, but I mean, the Giants scored 287 points, which ain't bad, which is actually second in their division here, but they gave up 298, which is really bad. So I mean, basically, they gave up as many points as they scored. So just with as I said, offensively it wasn't too bad, but defensively, yeah. If you look here, I mean, good old Charlie Connolly was their quarterback, right? Yeah, he played all 12 games. He completed 50% of his passes, which back then is very good. 17 touchdowns, but he had 20 interceptions. It's not so good. I mean, they 2,157 yards passing, but they gave up 2,460. Right. They had 22 interceptions on defense, but they gave up 16 touchdowns. I mean, so just nothing special at all. I mean, their running game here, right? I mean, they what do we got? They scored 15 rushing touchdowns. They gave up 20. They had 1,400 yards rushing, so they averaged a little over 100 yards a game rushing, but they gave up 1,664 yards rushing. Right? They only averaged 3.4, but they only gave up 3.6. All right, but I mean, okay, here we go. I'm sorry. They averaged 117, but they gave up almost 139 rushing yards a game. All right, so they gave up 139 rushing yards a game. Doesn't say here yards a game, and they gave up 205 passing yards a game. All right, so they gave up almost 350 yards total a game. Not very good back then. You're talking 19. You're talking 2021, 2022, and you only gave up 350 yards a game. Okay, we can talk, but give up 350 yards a game back in 1949. Yeah, it's not too good. One thing I want to point out here is good old M. Tennell, right? He was he led the team there. He had 10 interceptions. He was going to be a Hall of Famer. He was good. He had ran 2 of them back for touchdowns. I want to show you our kicker here. I mean, this guy, Ben Agajanian. Okay, he actually played. I want to see a guy a wanderer. He actually played for the Giants 2 times. He played for him 1949, and then he came back for him, played for him again when the Giants were playing in the championship game in 1956. He was the kicker back then too. So let me show you this guy's career. Ben Agajanian. All right, he played for 9 different teams. I mean, look at this. Played 5 years for the Giants, and he played for the Chargers, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Dallas Texans, the Green Bay Packers, the Oakland Raiders, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Rams. I mean, look, 45 he played for 2 teams, the Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. All right. 47 he played for the Dodgers, 48 for the Dodgers, 49 for the Giants, 19. And then he missed played for a couple of years. Then for the Rams, 1953. 54, 55, 56, and 57, he played for the Giants. In 1958, the Giants got Pat Summerall, right, the TV announcer. Then a couple of years, he wasn't kicking. Then 1960, he came around. He started in the AFL, started kicking for the Los Angeles Chargers. 61, he was on 2 teams. He played with the Vince Lombardi of the Packers and the Dallas Texans. Then in 1962, he kicked for the Oakland Raiders, and then he missed another year. And for 1964, he kicked for the San Diego the Chargers. I mean, talk about a wanderer, huh? I mean, his career started at 45, and his career lasted 20 years. His first year was 1945 when he was 26. And 1964 was his last year. He was 45 years old. So he kicked in a span of over 20 years. I mean, he wasn't super duper. I mean, he kicked 51% of his field goals. I guess back then it was not too bad. He had, for his career, all right, he was 104 out of 204. His longest was 53 yards. Who did he do that with? With the Dodgers, all right. But his longest with the Giants was 50. With the Giants, he had almost 55%. Field goal percentage. The 5 years he was with the Giants, kicked 46 out of 84, but his extra points were relatively good. I mean, he was very, very accurate with the extra points. But I mean, for back then, kicking 55%, that's pretty good. So I guess you know why he lasted as long as he did. But that's Ben Agajanian. So that's kind of the Giants, kind of in a nutshell. Now let's show the 1949 season here. Here's the other division. Okay, you got the Rams and the Bears, the Cardinals. The following in 1950, as I mentioned, the Cardinals would be over. The Cardinals would be over in the Eastern Division. Right, they come over here. The Giants would get the Browns. The Bulldogs would go over here. Okay, the Cardinals would come over here. Right, the Baltimore Colts and the San Francisco 49ers would join here. All right, so times were changing. All right, we got the 1949 NFL season. All right, the 1949 NFL season was the 30th regular season in the National Football League. Prior to this season, the Boston Yanks owner Ted Collins asked the league to fold his team due to financial woes and give him a new one in New York City. This new team would be called the New York Bulldogs. So they went from the Boston Yanks to the New York Bulldogs. The franchise, which to this day has still never missed a season in some form, carried on the legacy of the final Ohio League member, the Dayton Triangles. And its players and assets were moved to New York, but not specifically folded. As a result of the move, professional football would not return to Boston until the Patriots began playing in 1960. As the regular season came to a close, a merger agreement between the NFL and the All-American Football Conference was announced on December 9th. 3 All-American Football Conference teams joined the NFL in 1950, the Browns, the 49ers, and the Baltimore Colts. The season ended on December 18th with the NFL Championship game in muddy conditions. The visiting Philadelphia Eagles defeated the Los Angeles Rams 14-0 as heavy rain in Southern California kept the attendance under 23,000. Yeah, so the winning, the shares, the money that the players got was not very good at all because of the poor attendance. Both teams had potent offenses, but were severely limited by the poor field conditions. Yeah, the Rams didn't even have 100 yards of total offense. The management of the Eagles and the Rams had favored a postponement for a week, but were overruled by Commissioner Burt Bell. So, it probably would have been a more exciting game if it wasn't raining or a bloodbath. All right, the draft. The draft was held on December 21st, 1948 at Philadelphia's Bellevue Stratford Hotel. With the first pick, the Philadelphia Eagles selected center, some guy by the name of Chuck Bednarik, from the University of Pennsylvania. Major rule changes. The free substitution rule, any or all the players may be replaced by substitutes after any play, was readopted for 1 year. The rule was previously adopted in 1943 in response to the depleted rosters during World War II, but it was repealed in 1946. Right? And plastic helmets were once again allowed after being outlawed in 1948 because they thought guys with the plastic helmets were kind of using it as like a weapon. Yeah, I guess they could go and maybe spear a guy or something like that and try to do some damage to him. In the division race, in Eastern Division, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh both had records of 4-1 when they met in Week 6. The Eagles won 38-7 and kept the lead for the remainder of the season. But I said the same thing too. After Week 6, the Eagles won. The Eagles were 5-1. The Giants were 4-2. But then after the wheels just fell off the carts for the Giants, and then before they were out of it. In the Western Division, the Rams got off to a 6-0 start, while the Bears were 3-3 at midseason. Though the Bears won all of their remaining games, they never caught up to the Rams, who finished 8-2-2. Now, this is interesting. Had the current post-1972 system of counting ties as a half a win and half a loss been in place in 1949, the Rams would have required a playoff with the Bears for the Western Division because the Rams had 2 ties. Now, if each one of the ties, each tie counted half a win, half a loss, there was 2 ties. So each one would have been a half and a half. So would have gave them an extra win. So they would have had 9 wins, but then would have gave them another loss. So they both would have been 9-3. I don't know where the playoff game would have been hosted at, if it would have been in Chicago or it would have been Los Angeles. But if the ties counted as half win, half a loss, they both would have been 9-3, and it required a playoff game. And if the Bears wind up winning that, maybe the championship might have been a little bit different. But it was what it was. I mean, the Bears were a good team. They only gave up 218 points, scored a lot of points, but it was what it was. So you had the Rams and the Eagles playing in the championship game. The Eagles wound up winning 14-0 at Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum on December 18, 1949. Now, the league leaders, Johnny Lujack of the Chicago Bears, 2,658 yards passing. Very impressive. Over 200 yards a game passing. That's good. Rushing, Steve Van Buren had 1,146 yards rushing. Very impressive. And receiving, Bob Mann from Detroit had over 1,000 yards receiving for the season. Once again, very impressive. Stadium changes. The New York Bulldogs began to play at the Polo Grounds, sharing it with the Giants. They both teams in the Polo Grounds. Then we got coaching changes. The Chicago Cardinals, Jimmy Kinselman left the team. Phil Handler and Buddy Parker served as head coaches of the Cardinals for the first 6 games of 1949. Parker then was the sole head coach for the last 6 games. New York Bulldogs, Charlie Ewert was named as the first head coach of the new team. Washington Redskins, Turk Edwards was replaced by John Welchel. Welchel was released after 7 games, and Herman Ball then became the new Washington head coach. All right. Then we got the 1949 NFL Championship game. This is one of the scores right here. I think this is Chuck Bednarik right here. I think. It's kind of tough to tell. But I think that's him. But this is a block punt. The Eagles are up 7-0. This is Bob Waterfield, okay? He punted the ball. The snap, I'm going to read it. The snap was high. He had to jump up, bring it down. I guess that threw the timing off and all. And he broke in. The guy blocked the punt, all right? Scooped it up at the 2-yard line, apparently just rolled into the end zone for a touchdown to put it up 14-0 and kind of put the game out of reach, I guess, at the time, because the Eagles, the Rams just couldn't move the ball at all. Instead, they had under 100 yards total offense. You can see the sparse crowd in the background here too. But this is it was just a mud bowl, just a mud bowl. All right, so we got here. The 1949 NFL Championship game was the 17th title game for the National Football League, played on December 18th in Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. It is remembered for the driving rain that caused the field to become a mud pit. Its paid attendance was 27,900, but only 22,245 were in the stadium. The game featured the Eastern Division champion Philadelphia Eagles 11-1, and the defending NFL champions, the Eagles were the defending NFL champions, because the year before the Eagles won in a snowstorm at home against the Chicago Cardinals, beat them 7-0. So one year was a snowstorm, this year was a rainstorm. And the Eagles were going against the Rams, who were 8-2-2, winners of the Western Division. This was the first NFL title game played in the Western United States. The Rams had last appeared in a title game in 1949 with a victory, but that was when they were in Cleveland in 1945. That was their final game in Cleveland. 1946, they moved out to the West Coast. The Eagles were favored by a touchdown and won 14-0 for the second consecutive shutout in the title game. They won 7-0 the year before, and they won 14-0 this year. Running back Steve Van Buren rushed for 196 yards on 31 carries for the Eagles, and their defense held the Rams to just 21 yards on the ground. Philadelphia head coach Greasy Neal did not like to fly, so the Eagles traveled to the West Coast by train. On the way west, they stopped in Illinois for a workout at Stagg Field at the University of Chicago on Wednesday morning. Very interesting. But you'll see here, okay, this is Leo Scladani. Leo Scladani. Boom. That's him right there, blocking the punt. And he scooped it. It's tough to say exactly. But he scooped it up on the 2-yard line, okay, and he kind of, I'll show you, he kind of rolled into the end zone for the winning, not the winning margin, but I guess sometimes you can just tell when you're up by 2 touchdowns and the other team ain't moving the ball at all. It's pretty much a done deal. All right, so we got the Eagles players earned $1,090 each, and the Rams got $789, about 1/3 of what was expected with fair weather. So, I mean, that's another reason why, I mean, if Burt Bell didn't cancel it, or if he canceled it and pushed it off for the following weekend, right? Might have been nice weather, might have had 40, 50,000 or whatever people in there. The Eagles might have wound up with like, a couple grand, $2,000, $3,000. Right? They won the title, which is great, but I mean, a lot of the guys I know back then wanted the money. I mean, if they could have gotten an extra 1,000 here or there back in 1949 was huge. I know it ain't nothing nowadays, especially to these ball players, but I mean, back then, an extra couple $1,000. Wow. They were anticipating 70,000 or more in attendance in a large playoff. I mean, because the Coliseum is huge. So, I mean, they were expecting 70,000. They had like about not even 30,000 paid, right? So the players and owners wanted to postpone the game for a week, but were overridden by Commissioner Burt Bell, reached at home in Philadelphia. I don't know. Maybe he was trying to favor the Eagles. I don't know. Maybe that's why he overruled it. I mean, also, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. He didn't want the Eagles to ride the train back and have to ride back out there again. I don't know. But it would have made things maybe a little fair. Whoever won would have won more money. The losers would have won more money as well, too. And we got television. This was the first NFL game which was broadcast on television, although only on the West Coast, under the auspices of Bell. The traditional 60-40 player bonus for playing in a championship game was augmented by $14,000 from the NFL. Although sources are unclear, a source writes the NFL received $20,000 from the broadcasting rights. Well, who knows? Then you got, is this right here? Oh, here we go. Eagles win second straight National Football League title. Eagles tops the Rams 14-0. Neither rain, mud, nor Rams stays Eagles in playoff contest before 22,245. Yeah, Eagles are gaining, and the Rams stopped in game on coast. This is Steve Van Buren right here. And here's a Ram who caught a pass. Smith was being tackled by Kraft after taking a short pass from Bob Waterfield. They did not have, I mean, as you'll see here, I mean, Van Buren goes 196 yards and 31 tries. Bell overrules plea for postponement. First down, the Eagles had 17. The Rams had 7. Yards gained rushing, 274 for the Eagles. Rams had 21 yards rushing. The Eagles completed 5 out of 9 forward passes. The Rams only completed 10 out of 27. The Rams had 98 yards forward pass. So they obviously go 99. I'm sorry, the Rams had 119 total yards. I mean, the Eagles had 26. Eagles had like 200 or 340 yards. So I mean, they definitely outgained them. Way outgained them. Right. Plus, surprisingly, there was only one fumble. There was only one fumble, and there was only 3 interceptions. So for a mud bath, turned out pretty well. But then we got here. Here we go. Rolls 2 yards to score. Can I get it up there? Yeah. Okay. Good. The Eagles were up 7-0, so it's going to the third quarter. Okay. The second Eagles tally came when Leo Scalabrini charged in, blocked a punt attempted by quarterback Bob Waterfield, gathered in the loose ball on the Ram 2-yard line, and rolled over the goal for the touchdown to make it 13. They kicked the extra point to make it 14-0 and pretty much put the game on ice there. The pass from the center to Waterfield was high, and the Rams star, who averaged 38 yards with a muddy ball, right, in his kicking for the afternoon, had to leap off balance to field it before trying to give it the toe. So, I mean, threw the timing off, allowed the Eagles, Scalabrini, to come in, make the block, pick the ball up, roll in the end zone. Pretty much the game was over. From then on, it was all Philadelphia matinee in the mud. They played the game close, took no chances, and made no errors. The Rams' passing attack, Los Angeles' major weapon, is scrambling into this championship finale, was completely nullified by the mud and the charging, ever-aggressive Philadelphia linemen. The Rams gained only 98 yards overhead or throwing ball, completing a 10 of 27 passes by they had two Hall of Fame quarterbacks, Bob Waterfield and Norm Van Brocklin. Unbelievable. Norm Van Brocklin, okay, this is the last Eagles championship till 1960. Okay, and in 1960, the Eagles quarterback was Norm Van Brocklin. So the Eagles got Norm Van Brocklin from the Rams, and he led them to their next championship game. The real hero of the game, although he never scored, was Steve Van Buren. The Bull of the Bayou, he's from LSU. Steve carried the ball 31 times and plagued, I guess, the Rams with a accumulation of net 196 yards gained. Twice Van Buren encore crushing gains that set up scoring opportunities. One went for 49 yards deep in Ram territory, but the chance was fumbled away when Jim Palmer was hit and lost the ball on the Rams 7. Another 23-yard explosion went for naught when one of Thompson's passes, his second of the day, was intercepted. So, and then you got here, only 21 yards rushing. The Big Eagle line refused to back down in the sloppy going and wound up handing the Rams the dubious distinction of gaining less on the ground than any club in the history of the playoffs. 21 yards. The Rams managed to gain only 21 yards rushing, one less than the previous mark of 22 registered by the Washington Redskins when they were losing 73-0. When you're down 73-0, you're not trying to, let's establish the run game. Right? But I mean, it just goes to show you. I mean, the change in times. I mean, you got. I mean, the way the fields are nowadays, the way they train, and this, that, and the other thing, and all. I don't know if you'll ever see conditions like this ever again. But the Eagles were certainly the cream of the crop in the late 40s, especially in the Eastern Division. But as I mentioned, once the 1950s rolled around, the All-American Football Conference, those three teams merged with the NFL, all right? And especially with the Giants in the Eastern Division, there was a new sheriff in town, and they were called the Cleveland Browns. So you see, 1949, it just wasn't quite their season. The Eagles were very, very good. And then once 1950 rolled around, so there was the All-American Football Conference, okay? That conference was around for 4 years, 46, 47, 48, and 49. After 49, it disbanded, and three of the teams entered into the NFL. As of right now, 1949, the season we're talking about right now, there were 10 teams, okay? In 1950, it went to 13. So the Giants division, okay, it got a little, it changed a little bit. I mean, the New York Yanks or the New York Bulldogs went from the Eastern to the Western. They're still in the same city and all that, but all of a sudden they went from one division to the other. But starting in 1950, the Cleveland Browns entered, okay, the Eastern Division, and that was the Giants. I mean, the Browns were good. Yeah, I mean, they were really, really good. And then not only that, but the Cardinals, I mean, I don't know why it is what it is, but I mean, the one New York team went from the East to the Western Division. And then the Cardinals, the Chicago Cardinals, who were in the Western Division for forever, went to the Eastern Division. It is what it is. So in 1951, okay, it was the Browns, the Eagles, the Redskins, the Giants, the Steelers, and the Cardinals. Those are the 6 teams in the Eastern Division. All right. The Western Division had 7 teams in it. Okay. But I said once 1950 rolled around, things started changing a little bit. At the end of the 40s, the Eagles were in power in the Eastern Division. Okay, and the Eagles were still good in 1950, but once the Browns came around, from 1950 to 1955, those 6 years in a row, the Browns went to every championship game.
So they were very good. In 1956, the Giants went to the championship game, and then in 1957, the Browns went to the championship game. So the Browns went, to 7 out of, once 1950 rolled around, the Cleveland Browns went to 7 out of the next 8 championship games. So Paul Brown, the coach, was absolutely phenomenal. He knew what he was doing. But I mean, as far as for the Giants, they ended the 40s. Not on a high note, but not on a low. They were 500. They just were not very good. But as I said, once the 50s rolled around, they started getting some more pieces to the puzzle. And as the 50s went on, as they went through the 50s, by the time they got to the mid and late 50s, the Giants started going back to more and more championship games. Well, as always, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check out this video. You guys stay safe out there and go Giants. Woo!